My name is Carly Fisher, and I'm the Public Policy Director with the Maine Coalition Against Sexual Assault.
Are there further changes that you would seek from the bill, or things that you hope the next study will be able to address with it?
Yeah. So for the next round of a parole bill, I have to imagine it will come back again next year, next session. The single biggest thing for us, and I'll name really clearly that our support of parole is conditional upon it being appropriately resourced, meaning it needs to have a fiscal note with it that dedicates appropriations to do some really important things. I have some notes here you're going to see me looking down too. But we want to see dedicated appropriations for staffing the parole board. We believe that anybody who sits on that board should be compensated for their time and their expertise. We want to see a lot of victim services support. We want to see funding dedicated for evidence-based treatment during incarceration, because we would not support a parole process for someone who's been convicted of a sex offense that has not been through evidence-based treatment. And we believe that if we're going to make that a requirement, and we believe that we should, we also believe that there should be funding for that and resources for that, so that that population can have the same access to this process as everybody else, and also because that's important for safety for everybody, including that person. We also want to see funding for evidence-based reentry and counseling services upon release. And so for us, we feel like all of those pieces are necessary for safety and to make sure that this is done in an appropriate way. And again, for us, that we're talking about sex offenses, because that is our sort of arena and our place to weigh in. So it is conditional on those things. And if we were ever to see a parole bill go forward, for example, with no fiscal note, we would not feel like we could support that in good faith, because we would not feel like that is setting anyone up for success and for safety, which is important. A couple of other things too, and these are sort of relatively small tweaks that would matter to us, but we feel optimistic that the team that's working on this bill would work with us. But we would love to see language that formally includes victims and advocates in the guidelines and rulemaking process for parole. So not the legislative process, but the actual rulemaking process through the Department of Corrections. We would like to be involved at that point too, so that we can make sure that some of those more internal, prison or facility-based policies are trauma-informed and thoughtful and have victims centered. And we'd like to see that inclusion written into the actual bill language. We'd also like to see a minimum of 5 years served before the first parole eligibility in cases that involve sex offenses, even when that 1/3 of the sentence would otherwise be less. So we think that that's important. These are specialized crimes. They have special dynamics. And we think that that length of time really is important for treatment time, accountability time, and to create some space for healing and safety on the outside for the victim or the survivor, to really give them some space to thrive, survive, heal, seek justice and accountability that they need without being immediately concerned that there's going to be a parole eligibility right away. We would also request that for sex offenses specifically, that there's a minimum of 5 years between parole reapplications following a denial. And the reason for that is that what we don't want to have happen is if somebody is reapplying every single year, that's incredibly distressing, or can be incredibly distressing for the victim of that crime, because they'll be getting these notifications that they can come speak if they want to. And you can imagine every year that if somebody's deeply afraid of this process, which again, not everyone will be, but in a situation where someone is really afraid to have the person who caused them harm released, every year to have that fear churned up can be extraordinarily disruptive to mental health, their ability to hold down a job, their ability to parent comfortably, and just their sense of safety in their body and in their homes. And so we think it's really important that there is a window, a good window in between those. And again, the hope is that by the time somebody is actually applying for parole, they've gotten their evidence-based treatment, they have a good plan for what reentry would look like for them, and that there won't be many denials, right? I think the goal is to properly set people up with the resources that they need, be clear about what they need to do, so that by the time they do go through the effort of applying, they have a pretty good chance of success. I think if people are routinely being denied, that tells us that there's some kind of miscommunication with them about whether perhaps they were eligible in the first place, or it's realistic that that would happen for them. So we want to see relatively few parole applications, but when they go, we want them to be people who are really eligible and really ready to do it. We would hope that there would be some supports in place for them to have honest conversations with maybe it's their social worker at a DOC facility or someone to really just say, maybe this isn't in the cards right now. Like, let's do one more year of treatment and try it again then. But again, to really avoid, to be minimally disruptive to the victim or survivor's life for those who are really kind of scared about this potential outcome.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.